Hi, I'm Ashley Cooley, a birth, baby, and sleep specialist and mom of 3. There's so much information out there, right? This show is dedicated to helping you clear out the noise so you can figure out what will work best for your baby and your family. Having worked with countless families over the years, including my own, the information and strategies I'll share are based on these experiences, my extensive training, and we're even going to back it all up with some science. My goal is to help you make informed decisions, and we're here to break down what it takes to raise well-adjusted, securely attached, and happy babies. If you're looking to learn more about your baby, gain more confidence in your parenting, and get as much sleep as you can through it all, you've come to the right place. Bringing up baby is about to get a little easier. Not too long ago, I asked my followers on Instagram, what stressors have you encountered on your breastfeeding journey? The responses were aplenty, and mainly there were questions around 2 key areas: milk supply and latch. This is like when we're talking questions around tongue ties, around maybe how to use this Hacka pump, how to keep up your milk supply during your menstrual cycle. These are some of the things that we just don't hear enough about. We don't talk a lot about, and we just don't know about. So who better to chat with around questions around breast milk and breastfeeding than Kylie Field? Kylie Field is a certified lactation consultant here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and she knows her way around some breast milk. I might know her thing or two, but she's definitely living it, helping several women, people who are breastfeeding every day through their journey, and she's got a lot of great information to share. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Kylie Field. Kylie, thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited about this conversation. I thought maybe we could start with, if you wouldn't mind, just sharing a bit about yourself and how you've come to be a lactation consultant and how that's been going for you.
Sure. So I'm originally from South Africa, and I trained as a registered nurse there, as well as doing midwifery. And I was always interested in the postpartum side of things. And then when coming to Canada, we just moved around a bit and we had our own family. And when I wanted to get back into supporting families, I decided to actually become a postpartum doula. So I did that for a number of years. And then I just found that most of what I was doing was breastfeeding support and not so much. I was still working as a doula, but I found that there was a really big need for breastfeeding support and with complicated cases. So I pursued the IBCLC certification and did that, and then have been working. I've just actually recertified for the first time, so I've been working for 5 years as a lactation consultant in Halifax. And most of what brought me to it was that there were just cases that that something's off, and it wasn't the standard. It wasn't just a simple latch or not feeding enough with supply, things like that. So it was the diving in a bit deeper to the complicated cases.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, because just like babies, this is not all a one size fits all kind of thing. And you have to look at probably such a wide range of things that could be going on and taking place.
Absolutely. And remembering that you've got 2 parts to the puzzle. It's mom and baby. And I think so many parents feel it's just their issue, like they're not doing something right, where a lot of the time it's the baby's got their own set of struggles.
Right. I know at the prenatal level, we often talk about, well, in our breastfeeding class, of course, we're talking about how it is a natural way to feed babies. And a lot of babies can do the sort of things that they need to do to be fed on their own at times. But almost that just stopping there can set women up to fail at times, thinking like, okay, well, the baby can do it, so it is just my thing and I have to figure this out, and if there's a problem, it's all me, and that's just not the case, like what you're saying.
So we're looking at like birth interventions and the way they were in utero, and all those sort of things play a huge role.
Interesting. Well, I've already shared with you a few questions and comments that I've gotten from some followers, and I thought we would just dive into those questions because they're fantastic questions. And I know, but both you and I were saying earlier that they come up pretty frequently. They're quite common, definitely worth mentioning. So the 2 big standout topics that were coming out at their responses were questions around supply breast milk supply and latch. So having baby having a proper latch, I suppose. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the supply first. And I absolutely love this question because well, it should be talked about more, is how to keep up milk supply during your menstrual cycle. So eventually that menstrual cycle will come back, and that's different for all women in terms of when that happens. But if you're still breastfeeding through that, women have noticed that there can be sort of a dip in their supply, or even changes in behavior of baby at the breast when that's going on. So do you come across that as well? And what, do you have any tips on that?
Yes, I do come across that. And often for me, I'm seeing the babies that almost do a nursing strike when that happens. So again, oftentimes it's just a dip, and, just with sort of perseverance with mom and babe, they get through that. But it's nice to know what's going on, and figuring it out. So looking at your menstrual cycle, it often happens around ovulation, and during that time your calcium levels can drop off a bit, and that can impact supply. So almost from ovulation, and sort of peaks again a couple days before your period and the first 2 days, that's when we kind of see that the supply can sort of be a little bit more dramatically impacted. And so there, the main thing is to just keep offering, so don't fall back on offering express breast milk or formula top ups on a regular basis. Try and feed more frequently. So when you've got lower supply, you might just need to go back to feeding every 1.5 to 2 hours, but they'll be quicker feeds, because usually by that time the babies are older and much more efficient. So it's not like the first few weeks where they feed for what seems like an hour and a half. It's they're on and off 10 or 15 minutes, they're done, but they might be hungry a little bit sooner. So just, recognizing that and feeding, and maybe they will stay on a little bit longer. Then you can encourage them to just kind of keep going. That's going to keep boosting supply. Our bodies are really, they're gonna make, our bodies will make milk. So if we keep removing milk, we will keep making milk. But we do recognize that there are some things that might, we could help. So taking a magnesium calcium supplement, and I can send you links for that, just as far as dosage. And there are a couple links.
That'd be great.
Maybe,
yes. I can add that in the show notes. That'd be great.
Yeah. And then there's also a herb called shatavari, and it's just, you can pick that up. It's a powder form in most health food stores. It's pretty safe to take. And just even adding that to smoothies or mixing it into power bowls, that can also just boost supply, just during the menstrual cycle. It's great for any time, but that can also really help with boosting supply during that time. But the most important thing is to not panic and recognize what might be happening. And you might find, or you're going to add an extra feed, for that time, but just sort of paying attention to your cycle. And most people, I don't find it happens for 2 full weeks. It's usually maybe around ovulation, and then again a couple days before the period starts, and then suddenly things just all kind of go back to being normal again.
Right, right. But I love that it is that perseverance, keep feeding, and trying not to stress too much about it, because stress in itself can affect supply too.
And I was just going to add that too, not stressing yourself and not stressing your baby. So trying to kind of, I don't know what it is, and this is totally non-scientific, but I also wonder if there's some sort of flavor changes, because as you said earlier in your question, it's not always a supply. Like mom might say, well, I've pumped, I've still got the same amount, but the baby goes to latch and just pulls off, like almost like they're disgusted, and crawls off you. So figuring out how to keep that time at breast positive. Don't force them, never force a baby, respect them. So it might mean that you have to pump and bottle feed for a couple feeds, because that's how you're going to maintain your supply or keep them feeding. But also just maybe doing breastfeeding in the bath time, breastfeeding as soon as they wake up before they're highly alert, just finding other sort of, or breastfeeding while you're in the carrier, things like that. So just keeping it happy and positive, and not forcing the baby to it, because that's when you can get into sort of the true sort of aversions or nursing strike, and that's not a fun thing to go to.
Absolutely. Oh, those are all great tips. Wow, thank you. I'm no longer breastfeeding, but I appreciate those even for myself, because it's nice to get that reassurance that can be quite common, and perseverance, and there are ways to get through it. So that's great. Lovely. Awesome. Let's continue on with some other questions.
Sure.
This one I love as well. I think I love them all, but talking about the Haka pump, which is
Mm-hmm.
a brand, there are different types of these quote unquote pumps that collect milk while you're
Yeah.
also feeding. So I know, and I've heard you talk about some, not just tips on using one, which is sort of what people are asking, time of day or how often might something like that be used or should be used. But there probably is some word of caution there on that potentially causing an oversupply. Would that be right?
It can.
Yeah.
But it's a great little gadget that everybody feels they should have, and it is really helpful if you leak a lot. But my word of caution, not so much with oversupply, but taking milk away from the baby when they need both sides. So
Mm,
I think that it is great when, especially like if a mom is leaking a lot from the other side, you pop it on and you just leave it there, and it happily just drains away while baby's feeding on the first side, and could collect easily, 2 to 3 ounces for, and then you take babe off, and then they want the other side, and you've just taken away that really easily, readily available milk that they might need. And
mm,
knowing that generally we want to feed off both breasts is, for the average woman, that's kind of what's common. So you want to, maybe what you'll do is feed off the first side. If you're leaking a lot or you feel very engorged on the second side, use the Haka or the silicone pump, maybe to take off the edge, like 30 mils at the most, and then
mm,
stop it, take it off and wait, and then feed baby on the other side. And then you can put it on the first side that you've already fed from. And if you want to use it as a milk collection thing, so you could maybe get another 30 or 40 mils on that side, as long as you feel like baby's generally satisfied after 2 sides and doesn't need to go back to the first side. And then it in the early days, I have seen it cause oversupply, but that again was generally women that would be prone to having too much milk, and they just kind of are collecting like crazy. So we want to remember that empty breasts make milk, full breasts inhibit more milk being made. So if
mm,
your breasts are generally fullish and you are a person with a lot of milk, then that's going to kind of, you'll stabilize, your breasts will empty just enough to what your baby needs. If you really empty them completely, if you empty both sides and your baby's just a one-siding feeding baby, then your body's going to think that they're twins to feed. So that's where the oversupply kind of can
mm.
come into. So just really trying to mostly empty your breasts for as much as your baby needs. So that's where I would caution the overuse of the Haka.
Okay, very interesting. And in terms of empty the breast, because we know that typically there's milk that's always
Always,
there.
yeah,
It's just either coming fast or slow, or it's doing
true.
something different. That is true, right? That your breasts are never really
They are
completely empty. Empty.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So never, yeah, then thanks for clarifying that. So yes, they're never really empty, but it's basically if you feel your breast before a feed, it feels fullish and heavy. After a
Mm.
feed, should feel soft everywhere and kind of not that heaviness. But yes, there's still milk in there. Usually there's about 30 mils still in there, and you would have to work really hard to get that, extra 30 mils out, and that's okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's, thanks for
Love it.
clarifying that. That's really important.
Oh, I think I definitely that's one of my mission statements when it comes to breast milk is because I know like breast sizes and the feel and all of that can change during that breastfeeding relationship as baby
Absolutely.
grows. And lots of women feel that perhaps that, oh, they're losing their milk or they're not producing enough, but actually it's just the body adjusting and
Yeah.
there's always milk there if there's a demand there. So
Yeah,
I love that.
absolutely.
Let's continue on that supply issue. Someone was asking, and I think this has definitely been asked to me before. How do you know if you have an oversupply? Like, I know there are times when you can quote unquote have too much milk, but
Hmm.
certainly in those first few weeks or so, the body and hormones are definitely playing a role in terms of
Yeah.
adjusting, and it's a demand and supply
Hmm.
factor there. But if someone was thinking about maybe could I have an oversupply, how would I know? What would I do about that? Do you have any tips?
Yes. So as I say, I think waiting, before you sort of deem yourself as someone with oversupply, waiting the first sort of 4 to 6 weeks to figure that out. But most of the time it would be that you just never feel like your breasts are empty, like, or soft. Like, babe will be finished. And usually with oversupply, babies will only feed off one side. So it will be like one side and the baby's conked out and happy and gaining well and does a 2 to 3 hour stretch. But you're like, wow, I am just not feeling soft. And you'll feel like there might be lumps and bumps that don't resolve. So that would be oversupply. And you just feel constantly full and uncomfortably full. And sometimes, along with oversupply becomes a fast letdown as well. And fast letdown and oversupply don't necessarily come hand in hand. I've seen many babies with mums with fast letdown, but they have just the right amount of milk. But usually with fast letdown, with oversupply and fast letdown, you often have a baby who just kind of is quite gassy. They choke a bit at the breast. They just feel like it's just obvious. Like there's just milk pouring
There's
at
a
them.
lot. There's a lot.
Yeah,
There's
so
too
there's
much.
a lot. Yeah. And so with that, to manage that, I really would talk to somebody who is specializing in lactation, whether it's a public health nurse or lactation consultant, to kind of manage how you decrease supply. There are ways of sort of just feeding on one side versus both, and maybe doing that for a couple hours. It's called block feeding. But again, you want to do that very cautiously because you don't want to go into low supply where your body's going, oh, well, then in that case, we're going to really back off. So it is manageable. And there are, again, herbs and even medications should it become a real issue. But when you have it, you know you have it.
Right. And it becoming a real issue is that maybe that continuous oversupply or those lumps and bumps that you were talking about can develop into infections. And
yes,
if that's happening frequently, certainly there could be some supply things going on, right?
And then you want to also look, is the baby actually truly emptying, softening one side and figuring out, is the baby actually drinking properly as well? And should mum be doing a pump on that one side to completely empty that side? And when I say empty, we're going back to our previous conversation, but really feeling like you've softened that side completely, a couple times a day.
Yeah. This is great. It's just kind of, for me, it's solidifying that fact that if there are these true, I don't want to call them issues or problems, but just you're coming across some challenges or something that you're not sure about, that reaching out and doing your research and finding this information, it's gold and can mean so much. Because I'm just still thinking back to my own experience breastfeeding my first child, and it was an experience. And I definitely, if I did not get support, I probably wouldn't have gone and breastfed all three of my kids after that, because it's true, it's natural, but it's not always easy. And there can be things that pop up. So I love to talk about that. Absolutely. Okay, I have one more question in the supply department. Something, actually, you know what, we've actually been talking about this a little bit already, how our bodies and our breasts adjust, that some women can get stressed about their supply, that the fullness feeling isn't always drastic. And I know my sister called me about this issue. I've had friends call me about this issue, and I'm not the lactation consultant. I just happen to know
you've got
a few
lots of
things.
Info.
I have lots of info, but and I'm glad they reach out, because again, it's nice to connect with other people who have also breastfed and may have come across this, but that can be such a difference. I even noticed a difference in size and production with each child that I had, and thinking like, oh, my second child, she was actually much smaller than my first, and she was feeding it, I guess, more efficiently, not for as long of periods. And I kept thinking, oh no, I'm supposed to be feeding her more, or we have to chunk her up. She's not getting enough, but she was just getting what she needs. To this day, she's 6 years old, and to this day, she doesn't eat as much as her other sister, and that's just her. So there's such a difference in each baby, even in your own family, when it comes to all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as far as kind of knowing, I think that in some ways engorgement in the first few days when milk comes in and you feel that fullness, as much as it's uncomfortable a lot of the times, it's a bit of a reassurance. It's like, oh, my milk has come in, and you feel that full. And then for the next couple of weeks, you generally do feel quite full and hard almost. And that actually is not milk. Like, you don't suddenly, when you feel like you suddenly got 2 watermelons on your chest, you don't have 8 ounces of milk in each breast. What that typically is inflammation and a bit of sort of swelling and edema. So when we kind of want that feeling and that tells us we've got lots of milk, it's not really milk that was there right at the beginning. It's a bit of a
Yeah.
reaction of our body going, whoa, and we kind of send the lymph goes, and we have a bit of swelling in relation to the milk just coming in. So if you think of it that way, when breasts are softened and you're not really sure, like, oh, I'm not feeling that fullness, do I still have enough milk? That yes, the milk was always there, but you don't have that uncomfortable sort of inflammation kind of reacting to it. You've all your body settled down. It's accepted that there's going to be milk coming in on regular periods.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more a case of kind of, you'll know that fullness. It's just, I usually just describe it as a bit of a heaviness. So you feel like your breasts are a bit heavy before a feed and lighter after a feed. And really, bottom line is, look at your baby. Like, your baby
Mm.
is going to tell you if you've got enough milk or not. And when you might feel like you've got really soft breasts, but your baby's, you do suck, swallow, and they're relaxed at the breast and they're happy after a feed, they're peeing and pooping enough, all those things. Like, let your baby be your sort of barometer, your guide for that, and not so much looking at how full your breasts are.
Yeah, we have to trust the person who just came to Earthside.
Yes.
They know best. They
They
know best.
do. And
Yeah.
they are really like, they are like experts in feeding. They're not really experts in a whole lot else, but feeding, they know when they're done, and they know when they're full, when they're hungry, and they'll let you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, let's trust them on that one.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. So definitely a couple of questions about Latch. And I
Mm-hmm.
think these are probably some you get a lot.
Yeah.
But I love how the person phrased this question, and because I just love the term real talk, because
Yeah.
it sounds like she's been looking for an answer and maybe not quite finding it. So what is the number one real talk tip to overcome Latch issues?
Yeah, I had to think about that actually. So you're really wanting to look at the baby's cue. So real talk would be, let's not try and force. Um, let's follow baby's cues, and most importantly, let that baby feel safe on the mum. So mum needs to be relaxed. We want babies like shoulders, hips, and inside of their knees and feet to be touching mum and to feel grounded and supported. So when a baby feels safe on contact with mum, they can do that wide open gape, and they can do the nice latch on and not feel like they're sort of worried about where they are in space and are they going to fall, but they still really want to eat. So if
Mm,
they feel safe and grounded on mum, and then doing that nice sort of gape and coming onto the breast, and some, mums do need to do a little bit of nipple shaping and angling the nipple up a bit. That is helpful in the beginning, but I think that would be my biggest tip. And I'm not talking about what happens after birth in the laid back position. And I'm just going to put it out there, like you hear about, oh, let baby do the breast crawl and do self attachment. Honestly, that generally doesn't work brilliantly for any babies who are having latching challenges at home.
mm,
Like,
mm,
there still needs to be a little bit of guidance. So I generally say, sit up, make sure that it's all about mum, really. So make sure that you are comfortable and that you are
mm,
not tense. Make sure you have your feet are supported on a little stool, that you have a pillow behind your back, and the pillows to rest your arms on if you need to. So once you have that baby coming to breast, and as soon as you get the baby sort of ready to latch and latching on, just lean back into your chair or your couch and get comfortable. And then you'll find that you will both relax into this nice, comfortable latch.
amazing. I love that. It is about the mom, right? And
Yeah.
being relaxed. And one of my tips that I tell anyone breastfeeding who might be having challenges, especially in those first couple of weeks where it can be a bit of a dance,
Mm-hmm.
is going up and just trying, if you need a reset, is doing some skin to
Yes.
skin. So bring baby upright up to your chest, like your neck even,
Beautiful.
and hang out skin to skin. Because I think that not only does that relax the baby pretty much 99% of the time, but
Yeah.
it helps to relax mom as well, to just,
Yeah.
who sometimes we just need to breathe. And then you see that, okay, now let's try again. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And oftentimes that they just get it. And sometimes even just letting them suck on your finger while they're doing that reset. That, I love that reset word. It's great. It just helps them to get organized and calm down. When a baby is screaming at the nipple, abort. Stop.
Abort,
Yeah.
abort.
Put
Yeah.
the baby to your chest, or either pass baby off to partner and say, I'm just going to go and grab a drink, use the
Mm,
washroom and come back and start again. And in that time, ask somebody else who's holding the baby, or if you're on your own, just take some time to let the baby suck your finger. What sucking does is helps them to organize, and then they can go, okay, I can do this again. Because when they're screaming, their tongue is in the middle of their mouth and they just physically
mm,
cannot get that latch. So
mhm.
yeah, that's sucking. And then as you say, skin to skin just helps to just a reset
Yeah.
and get organized, and they'll try again.
And the other thing you mentioned about baby touching mom and how important that is, because they do, you mentioned about them feeling like they're floating in space and like, I'm not sure where
Yeah,
to go or what to do here. They don't actually see themselves as a separate being. They're
true.
too little, not developed enough yet for that. So those things that we don't necessarily know about babies and human
Yeah,
development, those all play a factor. So that's really important, and a really good tip, I think, to
yeah.
keep in mind is that touch is very
Yeah,
important.
and they haven't had gravity. So in utero, gravity wasn't really an issue for them. And suddenly, when we take them out, gravity's big, And so if they're laying flat or slightly away from you, they're not sure that they might be falling. So they sort of have half their mind on that and half their mind on thinking that they're hungry and they want to feed. So if we tuck
Mm,
them in nice and closely, then they can just focus on feeding.
fantastic. That's where baby wearing can be so
I
helpful in
love
that
baby
ring,
wearing.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, love
awesome.
it.
Okay, perfect. Two more questions. And well, actually, you know what? The second one being how to get a young baby to open mouth wider when latching. I think you were really touching on that a bit
Yeah,
earlier, right? But anything else
I
in
think
that vein, if it's just about maybe getting a wider
so.
open mouth?
I think just doing again, being relaxed and eliciting those natural reflexes that babies are born with. So sometimes it's touching the nipple to the nose or touching the nipple to the cheek. So it's not necessarily to their mouth. If you touch to their mouth, they sometimes kind of want to munch onto the nipple like a little bird. Um,
Mm,
Whereas if you touch their cheek or their nose, that elicits that newborn gape and that reflex to open wide and latch. So at that point, and again, if you just have your hand behind your baby's, not on their head, at the nape of their neck, that can help to kind of guide them gently onto the breast with that open mouth. And again, trying to guide the baby to you, and don't try and push your breast into your baby's mouth. You've got like a millisecond to do that when they get the wide open gape. And
yeah.
so with us trying to move our body into a baby's mouth, you've used up too many seconds. So just you can help to kind of gently guide the baby on. But yeah, using their natural innate reflex to open up will be good for that.
Perfect. I love that. And it doesn't it doesn't have to be perfect every time, right?
Yeah.
You do want a wide mouth, absolutely. But if it's not always wide, you didn't always get it, that it doesn't mean that it's totally,
Yeah.
it's not going to be good.
No,
Not
and
going to
if
be a good
it's
feed.
not great, try and you can do a very gentle little chin tug to sort of open up their jaw. A tiny millimeter can make a difference. But if it's pinchy, stop and break the latch, and start again and just try again, because I also don't think, grinning and bearing through a painful latch and having damaged nipples,
Mm.
it's not worth it. Just start
No,
again.
that's yeah, not worth it.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
again, just let baby suck and calm down and then try again.
Awesome. The last question, it is a big one. Especially I find lately, I don't know, tongue ties. I don't
Yeah.
even have a question with that. It's just tongue
Just
ties.
tongue ties.
Just tongue ties,
It's a
period.
thing. Yep,
It's a thing. And so you
they're a
must,
thing.
in terms of quote unquote diagnosing a tongue tie, or moms working through a tongue tie, if they're waiting for an appointment, or maybe they don't even need an appointment, what can you tell us about tongue tie?
Oh, it's a
Do
big
we
one.
need a separate
Yeah,
episode
yeah,
just on that? Because we
almost.
might.
Well, almost. But definitely we are understanding that that little membrane under the tongue can impact the tongue's function. So you can have babies with tongue ties where someone has said they have a tongue tie and they feed fine, because we want to look at the mom's anatomy. Has she got stretchy breast tissue, or has she got very firm, tight nipples that aren't even protruding? Those babies are going to have a harder time if their tongue function isn't great. But if you've got a mum with stretchy nipples and a baby with somewhat of a tongue tie, they might fit together and be okay, and if supply is good. So there's again all different facets, but or aspects of what to look for. But tongue ties definitely are a thing, and they do affect the function. So we're going to not look at necessarily the tongue tie itself. We're going to look at the whole picture and sort of say, if we notice a tongue tie, and that could be posterior, and posterior means that you can't, that little membrane isn't tethered to the tip of the tongue, it's further back,
Mm.
but you can feel that there's a tight membrane in there and the tongue isn't behaving as it should. So we want the tongue to be able to move side to side. We want it to be sticking out. Some babies have a long tongue that can stick out, but they're still tremendously tongue-tied. Can their tongue move up? Is their tongue touching their palate? How does it feel when the baby's latched? Does it feel like they're biting, or does it feel like there's a good sort of tug, but not painful? Um, so all of those aspects, can come into play when we're looking at a tongue tie. And yes, there are babies that need to have it released, and again, there are some that can manage without it. And we just know more about them. So, you'll hear a lot that tongue ties are a fad. I don't know that they
Mm.
are a fad. I think we just now are, if breastfeeding challenges occur, we are more educated and we know to kind of find the root cause. And sometimes it is a baby with a tongue tie. And in past, when we didn't know about this and breastfeeding was painful or the baby wasn't transferring milk well, you would sort of have gone to bottle feeding
Yeah.
as just kind of, well, we don't know what else to do. We need to still feed our baby, so we're going to feed them milk through a bottle. And that's
Mm.
fine, but we just know more now. So that's why you are hearing more about tongue ties.
Mm. A new mom, or any mom necessarily looking as soon as their baby's born to see if they have a tongue tie, whether they think they see one or somebody sees one or not, doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem.
No.
Um, but if there is a problem, that's one of the things that you can look at and maybe see if there are
Yeah.
challenges there or working around that. So I think kind of the main message I've been getting from you throughout our conversation today, it's all been amazing advice and tips, but just looking at the whole picture, there's
Yeah.
more to it. Just like every baby is different, every situation and mom and nipple and breast and baby's
Yes.
mouth and tongues and all of that, it's more than just one thing. So if you're not finding the answer to what you think might be and what has been challenging in that breastfeeding experience, that reaching out for help to somebody who knows a
Absolutely.
little bit more,
Yeah.
a thing or two about those things to look for and where to get that help can be so valuable and helpful.
Absolutely. And I think that would be my final sort of take home messages for every parent, mum and dad, or mum and mum, whatever the situation is, to trust your instincts. As soon as that baby is born, you trust your instincts. So if you go to every medical provider and you feel there's something's off with your baby and they all say everything's fine, if you still feel something's off, then trust and look for the answer until you find that answer, because you really are the expert on your baby. And
Mm-hmm.
so we might look at scales and weight charts and all those things, and oftentimes it is those great big chubby babies that aren't happy, and they generally, babies should be content. So it's, if you feel something's off, look, keep asking until you find the answers to kind of help you narrow down what could be causing issues.
Yeah, amazing. How could somebody find out about you, Kylie?
Well, I have a website. My company is called The Nurturing Touch. So thenurturingtouch.ca is where you can find more info about me. And yeah, I've got my contact
Amazing.
info on there as well.
And you're in Halifax,
Oh,
so
yes, I'm in
if there
Halifax.
happen to be any listeners that aren't around, of course I don't expect you to know all the lactation consultants
Yeah.
that they could get in touch with, but do you have any go-to like, is there a website, is there a resource that you feel has really great information or anything like that you can
Um,
reference?
well, yes, the one I really love is just called breastfeedingsupport.com. I'm just going to
Hmm.
double check that. So it is actually out of the UK, but it is my favorite. If you type in breastfeeding support, I think it's breastfeeding.support. It's phenomenal. It really is, a website that I give to every single pregnant or breastfeeding person, because it's just got it all. A great little search engine, and I like it's similar to Kelly Mom would be another one.
Yeah.
It gives great links, and it's all evidence based. It's all research based, and so it doesn't just kind of send you to sort of forums or it's good info.
Right. It's not about opinion. We're sharing facts and real information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, those are great. I knew about Kelly Mom, but I didn't know about so is it breastfeeding well, I'll get it from you and we'll put it in the show notes for sure.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'll send that to you, but breastfeeding support and excellent.
Awesome.
And then if you look at Canadian Lactation Consultant Association or the International Lactation Consultant Association, if you were looking for a lactation consultant in your area, if we're certified in part of those organizations, then you would be able to find somebody who is local to you.
Great. A big database for all of those who are certified. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Kylie. I've loved catching up with you. I know it's been a while since we especially saw each other in person, but I know I've been referring people to you for years and never hear any complaints.
Oh, well, I've been doing the same to you. So I love having this collaborative group in our area where we all have our little niches and we can pass. It's like, nope, sleep. Off you go to Ashley.
Absolutely. Because I mean, there's generally speaking, I mean, I do work with families in a lot of different areas, but sleep being a main one where, you know, you're divulging a lot of your information about your baby and the relationship and the family and stuff. So naturally, there's more than just sleep that's going on with that. There's feeding, it's the whole human, it's the whole part of the baby and the family. So it is great that we can all stay connected and refer to each other when it's due. So one baby at a time, one family at a time.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure I'll probably be looking for you again sometime because there's never any shortage of questions or things we could talk about here. So
yes, and I feel like we're in a baby boom. So there's never shortage of new babies being born either.
Absolutely. And the COVID baby boom is going to be especially interesting. Yeah.
Great.
Wonderful.
Well, lovely catching up with you. Thanks very much.
You too, Kylie. Thank you so much.
Looking for more? Check out birthbabysleep.ca, where you'll find prenatal classes, postpartum and new baby resources, and sleep support during the childhood years. You'll also find me on Facebook and Instagram at birthbabysleep. It would be awesome if you followed us wherever you listen to podcasts, and if you can, leave a review or a rating, which goes a long way for helping others to find us. That's all for now. I'm Ashley Cooley, and we'll see you back here next time.